Hi and welcome to this seventh and final video in the strategic analysis series on the T-Railways case study. And hi, I'm Nick Best, and if you've not watched the other videos up to this particular point, I'm a Managing Director here at Astranti Financial Training. And what I'm going to be doing in this final video is going through our strategic analysis. So basically, again, if you've not watched all the other videos up to this point, what I've gone through is I've gone through each of the pages of the pre-scene and looked at each of those elements in detail. Done another video on from the perspective of the F3 point of view, another one on the P3 point of view, and looked at the case study from an F3 and P3 perspective. The other videos are largely about E3 and the strategic perspective and strategic analysis. What I'm going to do in this final video is just bring everything together with a full strategic analysis. Now, you can download this strategic analysis for free from the website. Just go on, sign up, and you can download it. But what I'm going to do is give you a little overview of that strategic analysis. I will warn you that actually, as I've been going through all the pre-scene videos up to this point, I have covered a number of these models in detail, and with those ones I'll do it quickly, but I'm not going to go through them in detail. So I'll just warn you about that at the start. Please just go back and, again, sign up for all those free videos. They're all available if you sign up for free on the website. Go through the previous ones and go through the models on there, and I'll just do a quick summary of them on this particular page. So, overriding feeling then on this case, I think that it's a good industry for most of us because we've all been on railways. The company's in a good position because they're a monopoly, they've got a strong asset base, they're supported by the government, but this bureaucratic culture and ongoing sort of politics and political interference and lots of different stakeholders like unions, customers, management, all with differing needs, does bring some challenges. And what our aim is going to be is we're going to basically work through the rational planning model, which you should be studying as part of your E3 studies, and basically work through each of those key models and bring together a full strategy and end up with where are we going to take this business given our strategic analysis. And so, as a quick, hopefully, reminder for you of the rational planning model, the first element of the rational planning model is to decide where we're going to be going in the future. Set out our mission, what in this case they call the strategic objectives, and our more detailed objectives on an annual or 5-yearly basis to focus the business going forward. And to help us to do that, we think about governance and ethics from the point of view as how is the business going to be managed and what are our objectives for all those key stakeholders. And part of that is really understanding who the stakeholders are, putting them into a stakeholder map, and make sure that the objectives are consistent with that. So we're going to be looking at the future and where this business is going. Then we're going to look at where the business is now, because taking the business forward is all about going from where you are now to where you're going into the future. It's a little bit like going on a journey somewhere, and you're about to get in the car, go on a journey. You need to know your current position if you're going to plot your route to your end destination. It's exactly the same with business strategy. We have to understand our current position, the now, if we're going to take our business forward. You'll notice in this model that the future is a bigger circle. That's representing the organisation to say that we're more, we're better, we're bigger than we will be in the future. Okay, and we need to look at the business environment. We'll have a look at PEST analysis and 5 forces analysis to do that. And we have to look internally within the business and look at things like product life cycle, Boston Consulting Matrix in terms of the products, and pull it all together in a SWOT analysis. So we've got our short summary on one page of where the business is now in that SWOT analysis. And now we can plot our route, plot our strategy. How are we going to take the business forward? What about ported generic strategies of cost leadership, differentiation and focus? Which of those will be relevant? And to be honest with you, they're probably not in this particular case. What definitely is relevant is ANSOF's strategic planning matrix, looking at the different options that are available. And that's really hinted at heavily in the pre-scene. I'm sure we're going to see that well. But that would probably be one of the most likely models we'll see, given what's hinted at in the pre-scene. And then how do we take the business forward? Do we do joint development, internal development, and so on? And we define our plan, our business strategy to take the business forward. That's what we're going to be doing over the next few minutes. So our first stage then is this starting off point of where are we going to be in the future. We'll have a look at governance, ethics, have a look at the stakeholder map. So what are we told in terms of mission? Here is the strategic goals, this section in the middle of the page. So let's just remind ourselves of those. To deliver efficient, cost-effective, safe and reliable rail services. So the efficient and cost-effective is all about keeping the costs down, using our resources effectively. Of course, we have to do that as a government-owned business. We have to be seen to be using taxpayers' money efficiently. Safe is a critical ethical objective, and reliable is ultimately one of the key customer needs. Services to deliver the government's vision of sustained economic growth. So we are owned by the government, and this is about supporting the government and the country's objectives of economic growth. And the reduction of carbon emissions, which is an important additional objective going forward. So note that focus on the government's objectives. And I will say my point at the bottom is that as you're working through the exam, bring everything back to, are we achieving these objectives? Because if we're not achieving these objectives with some new strategy, then why are we doing it? We might take something like the possible strategy that was hinted at of, should we split the businesses up into 3 separate subsidiaries, or 3 separately owned run businesses, not subsidiaries at all. And I think, well, is that really going to deliver efficient, cost-effective, safe, reliable services to take the business forward to achieve economic growth and reduction of carbon emissions for the government? Well, if it's not, and actually, with the exception of seeing something new in the unseen, I can't really see how it is, then we would reject it. So everything comes back to this. Please don't forget this on the day of the exam. It's absolutely crucial. Okay. My only one other comment on the objectives is perhaps there's not enough of a focus on quality and customer service. And perhaps that's the nature of being a nationalised industry, is that it's less about quality, it's more about good basic service. Okay, so that's just one comment there. Performance measurement is a key element in this particular exam. We're given these different performance measures in the actual scenario, and as I've already said, if you looked at one of the earlier videos where we went through this in a lot more detail, then they are a little bit, but these are only examples of the measures. But if these are really the examples, TCR, the passenger business, is all about customer, then the freight is all about efficiency, and the last one's a bit of a mix. And I'd really like to see a broader, more balanced scorecard across all of the businesses to get a better, broader measure of performance, particularly as we don't have the profit motive. And so therefore, definitely worthwhile thinking about the balanced scorecard and what the typical measures on the balanced scorecard will be. Again, I'm not going to go through these in detail because I talked about these in an earlier video, but definitely that I think that would be a good way forward for this business, particularly as that each of these separate sub-businesses should have this more broader basis with some innovation and learning objectives, with some financial objectives that don't seem to be with each of these sub-elements to that business. Okay, benchmarking I think is a good idea, because with a public sector business with no competition, then well, how do we know if we are really being better than someone else? Well, perhaps we should benchmark against other companies and in different countries to make sure that we are keeping up with the best in the industry. That would be a good idea for them in the future. Oh, as you go through the this strategic analysis, you'll see that we've got just some little adverts in here as well for some of the service that we've got. We have got strategic mock exams, which actually I think are crucial to passing this. You have to take some mock exams and do questions about the T Railways case study. One thing I've been working on the last few years is Top CIMA. I've spent huge amounts of time working on Top CIMA, where we've of course had case study for years and years, going back, 13 years now. The best way of passing that exam is taking mock exams based on the current case. And of course, we haven't had case studies quite so long at strategic level, but those sections you really do need to practice questions on those papers. So please do go and get those. Perhaps take advantage of our marking service, where we give you detailed feedback on your script and how to improve. And if you really want the best service we have, it's a personal coaching service where we'll actually sit with you over the phone tell you exactly where you're going wrong, the things you need to work on. Okay, so enough of the ads, let's move on. So governance then. Okay, so very much an E3 perspective here is governance, and I talk about this in a lot of detail in the E3 video. And basically my summary of governance is that we're given a little bit of information. They've got a board, they have annual meetings with the government and a few ad hoc meetings, and they do annual financial reporting. These are the bolded points on here. But we've got limited information on what they do on the rest of governance. And here's a kind of list of other things that would be under the UK's combined code. Of course, they don't have to abide by any combined code, being public sector, but certainly those other elements, things like what's the role of the chairman? Is there a separate CEO, which we'd like to see? Are there non-execs and so on? I think look out for those on the day of the exam and see if there are any other issues, certainly a possible E3 type question. When it comes to ethics and CSR, ethics, probably the biggest ethical issue is safety. This is obviously critical to this business, and increasing importance of environmental issues. So those are the two big ethics and CSR issues I think that are really hinted at that they're going to come up in this exam because of their importance highlighted in the Preseen. Next, the strategic analysis. Again, been through this in detail. I think it was video 2 maybe actually, and I think about it, where we went through the Mendelow's matrix. So again, not going to dwell on it, but I just want to give you this summary feel for the Mendelow's matrix, which is that there are significant numbers of very powerful key players. The chairman and the board, the regulator, the government, the unions, and you know what, the customers. Because it's public sector, they can put pressure on the government, and they've got, well, I put them in the low power box, but they're kind of low to medium. Even they could be, almost edging into key players. And that's a very hard environment to keep all of these different stakeholders happy. And we often see in these kind of businesses then that it's impossible to keep everyone happy. Okay, so so the key players are the most important players, and that's my summary of Mendelow's. For my detail of all of the other stakeholders and what I think about that, see the earlier video. What I will say is I think that from an exam point of view, E3 exam, Mendelow's matrix definitely could be a tested theory model. It's a very common model in past exams when we've had public sector businesses, because it's particularly important because you have so many key players in these public sector businesses. So watch out for that. Okay, so that's the future. That's where the business is going, the objectives and the stakeholders and what they want. Where is the business now then? We'll start off by looking at the PEST and the 5 forces, and looking at sort of products analysis, and the SWOT analysis is a kind of summary of all of those pulled together. So let's actually start with that SWOT analysis then. Okay, there are some really good strengths in this business. They're in a monopoly position, which assures their strategic position in their market. They've got this government funding of very, very low cost loans and low interest rates, and a really strong asset base that could be undervalued, that asset base. I don't know, it could be overvalued as well. We don't really know, but they've not revalued that. So there certainly could be some room for an upwards revaluation of some of their property and some of their assets. And that is critical for the services, but also possibly supporting future funding, as we know that they're going to be looking for that externally in the future. Good safety and environmental targets, and probably policies underlying that. And it's a cash generating business. They've got a good working capital position. Overriding, I think this is a strong, healthy business that, perhaps looking at the weaknesses, could have some inefficiencies. It says there's a bureaucratic culture. Perhaps that's something that needs to be changed going forward in the future. Looking at the KPIs, as I mentioned a moment ago, they look to be inconsistent, although we're not given the full list. But certainly looks like something like balanced scorecard and benchmarking may be useful. They have got some old diesel trains that might need some funding for the future. I could see that being a Preseen issue come up, whereby you have to look at investment options. Could be some kind of lease versus buy on the F3 paper on that particular one. There's a lack of competition, which may mean there's a lack of focus on quality. So that's possible, true. And just picking up on the finance side of things, the overhead allocation of the property and the network, the kind of track costs to the businesses, does make those profit figures rather arbitrary and perhaps not good as an incentive, and they don't appear to be using that. And this is one of the weaknesses. It'd be really good if we could get that accurate and then start making these slightly more profit center focused. But overriding this, there is a lack of profit focus, and that's natural in a public sector business like this. Big opportunities then, well, could be something like increased road congestion leading to a shift towards rail transport. The Preseen does say that was true on freight service, and if that's true on freight, that's probably also true for passengers as well. And then we have our 4 specific opportunities mentioned in the exam: expanding the network, restructuring into 3 separate companies, diversifying the portfolio, and outsourcing activities. If I'm really honest, I think the first one is really expensive to do. I can't see much benefit in a restructuring unless we see some new information in the case. I honestly wouldn't understand why they'd be diversifying their portfolio. They don't need to reduce the risk in that way. Outsourcing some non-core activities, I can absolutely see being a good idea. IT could be the kind of thing. Look out for the information in the case, though. Be prepared to answer questions on those 3, but then adapt for the information on the case on the day of the exam. Do you know what? So often I see people go in with a preconceived idea, and I'm sort of giving you a preconceived idea here, but what you must do is look at the case information on the day of the exam. It's absolutely critical. Okay, big threats then. Political change and new policies. The case leaves it open for things like privatisation or change in political policy or change in political party and so on. So that could be a big change for this business and a big challenge for them to keep their revenues above their cost, the key financial objective. Okay, that could link through to some kind of introduction of competition on the network. That happened recently in Slovakia, where it had been previously been fully private sector. So we don't know which country this is being based on, possibly Slovakia, possibly Hungary, something like that. So that's a possibility. The poor economic environment at the moment is a continual challenge. We'll cover that in the PEST in a moment. Customers moving to substitutes will cover in the 5 forces analysis, but another key threat. Increased regulation, yes. Pressure from unions. We don't know that there are unions, but you can almost bank on there being some. And I could see that being introduced in the unseen. Overriding feeling here then, some really good strengths, a few weaknesses that, particularly the bureaucracy that we should overcome. I don't really much like the opportunities available here. I think it's going to be mostly about sticking with what they do well, if I'm really honest. But just be aware of these threats and make sure that we're dealing with those threats as and when they arise. Okay, so the SWOT analysis. Okay. We do personal coaching on all the strategic exams, so we particularly find that's useful for research students who don't know where they've gone wrong, because we really focus people on what they do. You can see some of the comments from some of our students in the past. So please have a look at what we do on there. Again, I don't want to dwell on that on this video, but that's that one there. Do have a look at our one-to-one services, because we do get some really good feedback and really focused results focusing on people's one-to-one needs. Okay, but let's move on then to the PEST analysis. Again, talked about this in detail on the first video, so just briefly on this. Politically and legally, we are subject to political interference and changing regulation, new laws that we have to adapt to. It's a very difficult economic environment which will affect our funding position, that will also affect our ability to attract customers who may be looking for the cheapest option. Trends in transport, for instance, to away from railways, will be true under the social side of things, as is the increasing focus on sustainability in the environment. Finally, technologically, we do have to adapt to new technologies. We've seen the move into electrification. We do need to upgrade those diesel trains to electric trains over the next few years, and also make sure that customer-facing technologies such as online booking, train information, onboard entertainment, and these things are brought in. I've got a key worry that won't be the case because of the public sector nature of this business. It might be behind some of their competitors, well, not really competitors, some of their the other companies in other countries. Okay, so PEST analysis, I think, is a really likely model for this exam because there are so many good PEST issues. 5 forces, Not completely convinced. Have a read through of that one. Here's the 5 forces. I'm not completely convinced this will be, because it's always a bit funny to do a 5 forces in the public sector, because there's no competitors. There's not going to be any new entrants subject to any political change. Customers, as lots of individual customers, have relatively low power. Perhaps some of the large freight customers or some of the larger retailers, or if customer groups put pressure on politicians, that might rise to medium power. But by and large, an individual customer doesn't have much power. They just put their complaint in, and it's not really going to make that much difference when it comes down to it. It's not like many industries. Suppliers, we don't really know if there are any big suppliers. I would say that the unions have probably got a reasonable amount of power, which will increase staff costs. And as the best place to put this is under supplier power in this model. So maybe medium supplier power. But the big one on the 5 forces, the big one to focus on, are the substitutes. People moving away from rail transport because perhaps it gets too expensive or the service is not good enough, and they just drive their cars or get coach service, or in the freight business they move to road haulage. So substitutes, air transport is another big substitute that isn't on that list there. These are very important substitutes, and we do need to be aware of their prices and make sure that we are delivering a service that keeps people away from those substitutes. That's definitely high. Okay. Yeah, another ad. Top CIMA, we do possibly the most detailed top CIMA courses in the marketplace at a lower cost than virtually anyone else. So again, there's all the details there. It's not for me now to go through all of that. Okay, so let's move on then. In order to look at where we're going to take this business in the future. We've done our current position there with our SWOT. We've done our future. Where are we going to take this business? Okay. Firstly, 2 things to think about is where are we in relation to products and the Boston Consulting Group matrix and the product life cycle. These products are pretty much in the mature stage. You've been around for years and years and years. If anything, almost declining with the introduction of car transport. Although it was interesting to see that people moving back towards rail in the pre-scene in this particular country. But look, by and large, this is still a mature market. The products are cash cows. They're generating significant revenues. They are the market leader, obviously, so they would be a cash cow. You couldn't have a dog if you're the market leader. But I don't think BCG and product life cycle are a feature in this particular case. It's not really set up for that. And so I think products is a minor part of this particular exam. And even more minor are the generic strategies. We have no competition, so we don't need to use a model that's all about how you find your place relative to all the competitors. We don't need to think whether we're a differentiator or a cost leader or we're focusing on a particular segment. We are focusing on everyone, doing everything really. That's not really a relevant model. Worth just mentioning that. If that comes up in this case, it'd be on section B, would be my guess. Well, almost certainly. So don't worry too much about those 2 models in this particular case. But a really important model is Ansoff's matrix. There's no doubt about this. We are given 4 particular strategies. We can put those strategies into Ansoff's matrix, and with that in mind, then we can use Ansoff's matrix to decide which of these to do. Remember things like the structural change in the outsourcing and the existing market, existing projects. These are the safest of our strategies. In the new market, new product boxes over here, these are medium risk because we've either got a new type of customer or we've got a new type of product. And the diversification is highest risk. And to be honest with you, I can't see why we'd want to go into other forms of transport really anyway, given our government ownership. Unless they're forcing us down that route, but I really can't see why. So remember, this is the most risky of boxes. Okay, so I've put these into here for you, given some other suggestions. I go through Ansoff's matrix in detail on our I think it's video 4 actually is the last of the E3 focused ones. So have a look at that one where we look at each of those in detail. But I think that's a really important model for this particular case because it's hinting at something along those lines. Okay, the methods of growth then. Well, it could be that we do things like efficiency improvements, culture change, structural change. That's just internal development. We could do some acquisition, perhaps buy a new network overseas, or do new types of transport by buying companies operating in those industries. I think that would be the way to do it if we do that. Not that I think that's a particularly great idea. It's probably a step beyond where they want to be taking their business at the moment. Could do some kind of joint venture with a neighbouring country, shared services, or working together, something along those lines. I can see that being possible. Divest unprofitable routes. They've done that in the past, possibly. Again, I don't particularly think methods of growth is crying out to be examined given everything that's in the Preseen. Possible, but to be honest with you, I think probably unlikely. Ansoff, yes. Methods, probably no. That would be my guess anyway. So we need to define a business strategy then, bring all this together. This is my view of what I would do with this business. And to be honest with you, I'm going to be really boring because actually they've got a good, stable business with a government objective. I think let's just continue the success areas of the business, reliable passenger and freight services, continue with our safety targets and our procedures, increase focus on environmental strategies. We know those are all in the Preseen. Let's continue focusing on that and doing that well. I would say we do need to think about ongoing efficiencies as a public sector business. Remember the 3 E's: economy, efficiency, effectiveness. We need to continuously focus on efficiencies to keep costs down, particularly in these difficult economic times. That's a real focus for virtually any European public sector business at the moment. Perhaps some cultural change comes into that, so some kind of cultural change management come up on E3 on that particular one. Okay, perhaps some kind of introduction of balanced scorecard to ensure really strong performance measures and more customer-focused objectives would be my way forward. Perhaps outsourcing some non-core areas such as IT. I could see that being an E3 type question, that particular one. So nothing too dramatic in there. I certainly wouldn't be going off buying overseas companies or going into other forms of transport. Our focus is railways, providing a good railway service for our home country. Let's do that and do that well would be my way on where I would take this business forward. Okay. Top CIMA, we provide huge numbers of top CIMA products. So when you get to top CIMA, just look on there. Again, enough on that side. Have a look at the detail on those when you come to look at top CIMA, because we do provide probably more services for top CIMA than anyone else. Okay. And so just to sum this up then, from an E3 point of view, I could see questions on stakeholder maps, ANSOFs, ethics, PEST, objective, strategic analysis of those 4 suggested options. Change management, I might add to that as well, actually, because I think that I could easily see change management question coming up given the bureaucratic culture. So I might add that one onto the bottom, actually, of that particular one. I've talked about that as we've gone through. And the F3 questions and the P3 questions I cover at the end of those 2 videos. So sign up for our free videos and I'll say why I think that those are likely to be relevant to those. Okay, please, if you've liked this video, please, if you're watching this on YouTube, please click on the like the video, because that really helps us get the video recognised, which just helps us spread the word that we've got all these free resources out there. Do remember we've got free course notes on the website. We've got free strategic analysis, all these free videos. Please sign up for those, and make use of all those free resources. I hope that therefore you will then think, okay, please go and like our website on the www.astranti.com homepage. That would be really great for us because it helps us get up on the search engines and get our name known amongst the strategic. This is our first season we've been doing top CIMA stuff for years now. This is our first season doing strategic level material and giving free videos away and so on. So I hope you'll support us by going on and giving us a like. Hope you've liked the video, and if you've listened to all the series through, I hope you've really found these video series beneficial, and let me just wish you the best of luck in the exam and in your studies. Do work hard as you go forward throughout your studies. Do the best you can on the day of the exam. And if we're talking about that, I could just say on one thing: do make sure that you do get good exam technique when you're coming through to the exam. Strategic level is very different from operational level. It's far less theoretical. It's far more about advising the businesses, about getting good exam technique and approach and advising them in the right way. So really do lots of past exam practice questions. Really focus on good exam technique. It's really critical. Slight aside from all these Preseen videos, but just thought I'd give you that little bit of advice. And particularly if you're doing this for the first time and you've got 3 exams, you'll probably end up having to do far more work than you've ever had to do on your papers up to this stage as well. So, I know this is going to be a tough few weeks or months for you, but do get that work in there, and do particularly get lots of question practice, and get some feedback on your questions as well. Really, really critical to passing. Anyway, to sum up there, best of luck in the exam going forward, and if we don't use you on the strategic basis, I hope you'll come and join us on our top CIMA courses and buy some of our top CIMA material, where we have a real focus on something we've been doing for years. So please join us on that as well. Okay, thanks and goodbye.